My sister betrayed me with my husband, but when our parents cut her off, she came begging me to save her. I know that sounds like the kind of story people think they have heard before, but I promise you, the ending is not what most people expect. My name is Maya, and for most of my life, I truly believed I was the problem in my family. You know how some families have that one child who can do no wrong? The one everyone praises, protects, excuses, and smiles at no matter what they do? In my family, that was my younger sister, Lily, and I was the daughter who apparently could do nothing right. Looking back now, as an adult, I can see how deeply twisted the whole dynamic was. But when you grow up inside it, when it is your everyday normal, you do not stop and question why your parents' faces light up when one daughter walks into the room, and barely change expression when the other one does. Lily was born when I was 7 years old. My sister made my life a living hell, and now she is pregnant with my husband's child. But when our parents finally cut her out of the will, she came crawling back to me, begging for help. I know that sounds like the kind of story people think they have heard before, but I promise you, the ending is not what most people expect. My name is Maya, and for most of my life, I truly believed I was the problem in my family. You know how some families have that one child who can do no wrong? The one everyone praises, protects, excuses, and smiles at no matter what they do? In my family, that was my younger sister, Lily, and I was the daughter who apparently could do nothing right. Looking back now, as an adult, I can see how deeply twisted the whole dynamic was. But when you grow up inside it, when it is your everyday normal, you do not stop and question why your parents' faces light up when one daughter walks into the room and barely change expression when the other one does. Lily was born when I was 7 years old, and from the very beginning, everyone treated her like a precious miracle. Maybe it was because she was the baby. Maybe it was because she had those big green eyes and perfect blonde curls that made strangers stop my mother on the street just to compliment her beautiful little girl. Me? I had plain brown hair and brown eyes. I was not cute in that sparkly, effortless way Lily was. I was serious. I was independent. I was too quiet when they wanted me charming, too emotional when they wanted me calm, and too much of everything that apparently was not lovable. While I sat at the kitchen table doing homework, Lily curled up on Dad's lap watching cartoons. While I helped Mom with dishes, Lily got her nails painted or her hair braided. While I learned to put my own needs last, Lily learned that the whole room would rearrange itself around her if she tilted her head and smiled. I learned early that love in our house was conditional, and worse than that, scarce. So I decided that if I could not be adored, I would be useful. I became the responsible one, the straight-A student, the daughter who did not ask for anything because I already knew the answer would probably be no. Lily became the princess, the one who only had to bat her eyelashes to get whatever she wanted. Maya, why can't you be more like your sister? My mother would ask whenever I expressed a need, a want, or even an opinion. Lily is so sweet. She's so easygoing. Sweet. That was what everyone thought she was. But even when she was little, I could see something in Lily's eyes when adults were not looking. Something cold, something calculating, something that made my stomach twist with anxiety before I was old enough to understand what anxiety even was. By the time Lily was 5 and I was 12, the dynamic had hardened into stone. She was the golden child. I was the reliable one, the background daughter, the one who existed to make everyone else's life easier. I told myself it was fine. I told myself I did not need their approval. I told myself I was stronger than that. But deep down, that little girl inside me kept wondering what I had done wrong to deserve so little of my parents' love, and why my sister seemed to get so much without even trying. I had no idea then that the worst was still ahead of me. I had no idea that this favoritism would grow into something uglier, or that my parents' excuses would help create a monster who would one day try to destroy everything I had worked so hard to build. The signs were there from the beginning. Everyone ignored them, even me. The first time I truly understood that Lily was not the sweet angel everyone believed her to be, I was 13 and she was 6. I came home from school and found my diary ripped apart, the pages scattered all over my bedroom floor like confetti. My private thoughts, my fears, my little middle school crushes, everything I had written because I had nowhere else to put my feelings, torn into pieces. I ran, crying to my mother, and Lily came right behind me with perfect crocodile tears already streaming down her cheeks. She claimed she had only been looking for crayons and had accidentally knocked the diary off my desk. "I'm sorry, Maya," she wailed, throwing her arms around Mom's legs. "I didn't mean to." Mom melted instantly. She scooped Lily up and gave me a disapproving look, as if my pain was the real problem in the room. "It's just a diary, Maya," she said. "Don't make such a big deal out of it. She's just a little girl." But I had seen Lily's face for one split second before she started crying. She had been smiling, actually smiling. Not a nervous smile, not an embarrassed smile, a satisfied one. That was when the real torment began. Lily started going through my backpack whenever I was not looking. Sometimes she took my homework. Sometimes she threw away my lunch. When I complained, she denied everything with such convincing innocence that even I started doubting myself. "Maybe you forgot to pack it," Mom would say. "You've been so absent-minded lately." The food sabotage was especially cruel. Lily somehow discovered I was lactose intolerant before I fully understood it myself. She would slip milk into my orange juice or hide cheese in my sandwiches, then watch with fascination as I doubled over with stomach cramps later. When adults noticed, she would put on that fake little worried voice. "Poor Maya is sick again," she would announce to anyone who would listen. My belongings became casualties in her private war against me. My favorite sweater would mysteriously develop holes. My books would go missing right before important tests. My alarm clock would be unplugged, so I would oversleep and get in trouble. Every incident came with an explanation that made Lily look innocent and made me look careless, dramatic, or forgetful. The worst part was the way she weaponized other children against me. Lily had this terrifying gift for manipulation, especially for someone so young. She would tell kids at school that I had said mean things about them. She would repeat embarrassing stories she had overheard at home, twisting them just enough to make me sound strange or pathetic. Slowly, I found myself isolated, friendless, the weird girl with family problems, the girl people whispered about but did not invite anywhere. "Why don't you have any friends over anymore?" Dad asked me one day. I wanted to scream that it was because his precious younger daughter had systematically destroyed every friendship I tried to build. I wanted to tell him that Lily was not sweet, not innocent, not harmless, but by then, I already knew what would happen if I tried. They would look at her, then look at me, and decide I was the difficult one. So I just shrugged and said, "I prefer studying." "See?" Mom said. Like I had just proven her point. Maya's always been antisocial. Lily makes friends everywhere she goes. Of course, Lily made friends everywhere she went. She knew how to perform sweetness in public. But at home, when it was just us, she would corner me and whisper things that made my blood run cold. "Nobody likes you," she would say with that pretty little smile. Mom and Dad wish I was their only daughter. I will never forget the smell of burning hair or the look of pure hatred in my sister's eyes on the day everything finally changed. I was 15. Lily was 8. I was getting ready for my first real date. Tommy Rodriguez had asked me to the school dance, and for the first time in years, I felt genuinely happy about something. I had saved babysitting money to buy myself a dress. I was in the bathroom, curling my hair, humming softly, feeling nervous and excited in a way that made me feel almost normal. Then Lily appeared in the doorway, holding Dad's lighter. "You look stupid," she said. Her voice was flat and cold. "Tommy's going to laugh at you." I ignored her and focused on my reflection. I had learned that engaging with Lily only made things worse, but apparently ignoring her was the wrong choice too, because the next thing I knew, she lunged forward and flicked the lighter right near my hair. The flame caught the ends of my curls almost instantly. I screamed and jumped back, frantically patting at my hair as the sharp, acrid smell filled the bathroom. In the mirror, I saw a chunk of my hair singed off, leaving an uneven, burned mess on the right side of my head. "Lily!" I shrieked, but she was already running down the hallway, shouting, "Daddy!" Maya's yelling at me again. This time, Dad had heard my scream. This time, he came running. And this time, he found me standing in the bathroom with burned hair, tears streaming down my face, and his lighter in my hand, a lighter that absolutely had not been in the bathroom before Lily walked in. "What happened?" he demanded, looking between us. "She tried to set my hair on fire," I said, my voice shaking. Lily immediately burst into tears. "I didn't mean to. I was just playing." She grabbed the lighter from me, and it went too close. I'm sorry. For a moment, I thought it would be like every other time. I thought Dad would comfort her, scold me, and tell me not to be dramatic. But something in his face was different. Maybe it was the smell of burned hair that could not be explained away. Maybe it was the sight of me trembling. Maybe it was the first time he had physical proof of what his younger daughter was capable of. "Lily," he said quietly, and his voice had an edge I had never heard before. "Tell me exactly what happened." "I already did," she wailed. But her crying sounded different now. Desperate instead of manipulative. Dad looked at the lighter, then at my burned hair, then at Lily's face. For the first time in my life, I saw doubt creep into his expression when he looked at his golden child. "This stops now," he said. I was not sure whether he was talking to Lily or to himself. "Lily, go to your room. We'll discuss this after I take care of your sister." Dad kept his word in the only way he knew how. Within a week, I was enrolled in kickboxing classes at Morrison's Martial Arts Academy downtown. At first, I was terrified and awkward. I was the only teenage girl in a class full of confident adults who seemed to know exactly what they were doing. I felt clumsy. I felt exposed. I felt like everyone could see every weak place in me. But something almost magical happened after about a month. My body started remembering what it felt like to be strong. My mind began to quiet the constant anxiety that had become my default state. For the first time in years, I had somewhere to put all the anger and frustration I had been carrying. Every punch, every kick, every drill gave my fear somewhere to go. Sensei Kim became almost like a second father to me. He was a quiet, intense man who never had to raise his voice to command respect. He taught me that strength was not about being the biggest or the loudest person in the room. Strength was about being centered, confident, unafraid. It was about knowing you had power and refusing to give it away. "Power comes from within," he would say during our meditation sessions. "Nobody can take it from you unless you let them." At home, the dynamic began to shift. Lily could not understand why her usual tactics were not working on me anymore. When she tried to corner me with whispered threats, I looked her directly in the eye with a calmness that clearly unsettled her. I stopped flinching. I stopped begging my parents to believe me. I stopped giving her the reaction she wanted. The real test came 3 months into my training. I was in my room doing homework when I heard Lily rifling through my backpack in the hallway. This was nothing new. She had been stealing my lunch money for years, and I had learned to hide most of my cash in different places. But that day, she found my emergency $20 bill, the one I kept for genuine emergencies. "Give it back, Lily," I said from my doorway, my voice steady. She looked up at me with that familiar defiant smirk and crumpled the bill in her fist. "Make me." For 8 years, I had walked away from moments like that. I had complained to parents who did not listen, tried to reason with someone who had no interest in reason, and eventually accepted that I was powerless against her. But something was different now. I could feel strength in my legs, control in my breathing, and the quiet confidence that months of training had built inside me. "I'm asking you nicely one more time," I said. "Give me back my money." "Or what?" she taunted, stepping closer. "You'll cry to Daddy again." She reached out to shove me, the way she had done 100 times before, but this time I was ready. I caught her wrist gently but firmly, applying just enough pressure to stop her movement without hurting her. The look of shock on her face was priceless. For the first time in her life, someone had physically stopped her from doing exactly what she wanted. "I don't want to hurt you," I said quietly. "But I'm not going to let you hurt me anymore either." When Lily realized she could no longer physically intimidate me, she adapted her strategy like a predator, learning new hunting techniques. The direct attacks slowed down, but they were replaced by something colder and more insidious. A calculated campaign designed to make me feel invisible, unwanted, and worthless in my own home. She would give me the silent treatment for weeks at a time, acting as if I simply did not exist. When she was forced to acknowledge my presence, she used a tone that somehow communicated complete disgust without saying anything offensive enough for my parents to notice. "Could you pass the salt?" she would ask at dinner. But the way she said it made me feel like some kind of contamination she had been forced to interact with. She became a master of backhanded compliments in front of our parents. "Maya's so lucky she doesn't care about how she looks," she would say sweetly. "I wish I could be that confident about being plain." Mom would laugh and ruffle Lily's hair. "You're terrible," she would say fondly, as if Lily's cruelty was adorable instead of poisonous. But here's the thing about bullies who cannot break you anymore. They start losing their power. And when they start losing their power, Their desperation becomes obvious. I was done reacting to Lily's provocations. I was done defending myself to people who had already decided not to see. I was done caring whether my sister liked me, respected me, or even acknowledged me. Instead, I poured myself into my studies with a focus that surprised even me. I joined the debate team. I volunteered at the local library. I spent my evenings working on scholarship applications. Every hour I spent building my future was an hour I did not have to spend thinking about my toxic home life. During my junior year, my guidance counselor, Mrs. Patterson, called me into her office with news that changed everything. "Maya, I have something exciting to tell you," she said, barely able to contain her enthusiasm. "You've been awarded the Harrison Academic Scholarship to State University. Full tuition, room and board, plus a stipend for books." I stared at her, not quite processing the words. "A full scholarship?" "A full ride," she confirmed. 4 years completely paid for, as long as you maintain a 3.5 gigapascals. "Maya, this scholarship is incredibly competitive. They only give out 3 per year in the entire state." That night at dinner, I shared the news with my family. Dad's face lit up with genuine pride. "Maya, that's incredible," he said. "I'm so proud of you." Mom seemed pleased, but distracted. "That's wonderful, honey," she said. "Will you still be able to come home on weekends to help with things around here?" But Lily's reaction told me everything I needed to know. For just one moment, her carefully constructed mask slipped, and I saw pure rage flash across her face. Not sadness that I would be leaving. Not disappointment that our relationship was damaged. Rage. Rage that I was succeeding. Rage that I had found a door out. In 8 months, I would be free. College felt like stepping into an alternate universe where I could reinvent myself completely. Nobody at State University knew about my complicated family dynamics. Nobody knew I had spent years as the family scapegoat. Nobody saw me as Lily's dull older sister, the responsible one, the difficult one, the antisocial one. For the first time in my life, I could simply be Maya. I threw myself into campus life with the hunger of someone making up for lost time. I joined the photography club. I volunteered at the campus women's center. I made friends, real friends, people who enjoyed my company, invited me places, asked what I thought, and sought me out because they actually liked being around me. It felt strange at first, almost suspicious, to be wanted without having to earn it through usefulness. But slowly, I began to believe it was real. During my sophomore year, I met James in a study group for advanced statistics. He was quiet and thoughtful, an engineering major with kind eyes and a smile that made my stomach flutter every time he looked at me. What struck me most was not that he was handsome, though he was. It was that he seemed genuinely interested in what I had to say. Our first date was at a tiny coffee shop off campus. We talked for 4 hours straight about everything and nothing. He told me about growing up as the middle child in a family of 5 kids, about his dream of designing sustainable housing, and about his fear of heights despite wanting to help build skyscrapers. I found myself opening up to him in ways I had never done with anyone. I told him about my scholarship. I told him about my love for photography. I told him I had a complicated relationship with my family, though I kept the worst details to myself. Some stories were too heavy for second dates. Some wounds still felt too raw to expose. "You're different from other girls I've known," he said as he walked me back to my dorm that night. "You're so independent and strong, like you know exactly who you are." I almost laughed, because I did not feel like I knew exactly who I was. I felt like I was still discovering her. But James looked at me as if the strongest version of me was already visible, and I wanted to believe him. Over the next few months, James and I became inseparable. He was patient and gentle in ways I had never experienced before. He treated me like I was precious instead of inconvenient. When I told him about my martial arts training, he did not act intimidated or make jokes about it. Instead, he asked if I would teach him some basic moves. It felt safe. It felt steady. It felt like the kind of love I had always thought belonged to other people. But life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. During the spring semester of my junior year, I realized I was late. Not just a few days late, 2 weeks late, with symptoms I could not ignore anymore. The pregnancy test showed 2 pink lines that changed everything in an instant. I sat on the floor of my dorm room, staring at the test, feeling my carefully planned future crumble around me. I had worked so hard to escape chaos. I had worked so hard to build something stable and predictable. I had been so focused on proving that I could make a life for myself. And now this. When I told James, I watched his face move through every emotion. Shock, fear, worry, and finally, determination. "We'll figure this out," he said, taking my hands in his. "Whatever you want to do, we'll figure it out together." "I don't know what I want," I admitted. "I never planned for this to happen now." "I know," he said softly. "But Maya, I love you. I've been trying to work up the courage to tell you that for weeks. If you want to keep this baby, I want to do this with you. I want to marry you." I wanted to believe that love could be enough. I wanted to believe that choosing each other would make us strong enough for whatever came next. So we got married young. We became parents young. We struggled through school, bills, exhaustion, fear, and all the pressure that comes from building a family before either of you fully knows how to be an adult. Our daughter, Emma, was born beautiful and loud and perfect. The moment I held her, I made a silent promise that she would never grow up wondering whether she was loved. She would never have to earn tenderness by being useful. She would never look across the dinner table and wonder why another child got the warmth she was denied. For a while, I thought maybe I had broken the cycle. The first betrayal happened when Emma was 6 months old. I found the text messages on James's phone completely by accident. I had grabbed his phone instead of mine from the counter when Emma's pediatrician called, and the screen lit up with a notification that made my blood freeze. "Last night was incredible. When can I see you again? Rebecca." I stood there in our tiny kitchen, holding our fussy baby, staring at the words that shattered my world. Rebecca was a girl from his engineering program, someone he had mentioned casually a few times, as a study partner, someone I had not thought twice about because I trusted him. When James came home that evening, I was sitting at our small dining table with his phone placed in the center like evidence in a courtroom. "We need to talk," I said. Something in my voice made him go completely pale. He did not try to deny it. I have to give him credit for that much. He sat down across from me, put his head in his hands, and told me everything. It had been going on for 3 weeks. He was stressed about money, stressed about school, stressed about being a father so young. Rebecca had been there, offering an escape from all the responsibility. "It meant nothing," he said, tears streaming down his face. "Maya, I swear to you, it meant absolutely nothing. I love you. I love Emma. I never wanted this to happen. I wanted to scream at him. I wanted to throw things. I wanted to take Emma, walk out that door, and never look back. But I also knew what single parenthood would mean at that point. It would mean dropping out of school, giving up my career plans, maybe moving back home, back to the toxic environment I had fought so hard to escape. So I made a choice that I am still not sure was right or wrong. I chose to forgive him. "This never happens again," I said, my voice steady even though an earthquake was happening inside my chest. "Not ever. If you want to leave, leave now. But if you stay, you are choosing this family completely." He promised. He swore. He went to counseling. He deleted social media accounts, changed study groups, and did everything right for the next 2 years. Until he did not. Emma was almost 3 when I discovered the second affair. This time, it was his supervisor at his new job, a woman 10 years older who had been mentoring him. I found out because she called our house at midnight, drunk and crying, begging him to leave me for her. "Maya, I can explain," James said when I confronted him. But by then, his explanations were starting to sound like rehearsed scripts. This time, I was angrier, less willing to accept his remorse, less willing to pretend that tears were proof of change. "How am I supposed to trust you again?" I demanded. "How am I supposed to believe anything you say?" "Because I'll prove it to you," he said desperately. "However long it takes, I'll prove that you and Emma are everything to me." Again, I chose to stay. Again, I chose to believe that rebuilding was possible. Maybe I was naive. Maybe I was hopeful. Maybe I was terrified of becoming a single mother and struggling to make ends meet. Maybe I still believed that if I loved someone hard enough, if I was patient enough, if I gave enough chances, I could finally be chosen. The confession came on a Tuesday night in March, 7 years into our marriage. I was loading the dishwasher after Emma had gone to bed. James had been acting strange for weeks. Distracted, guilty, jumping every time his phone rang. I had started to wonder if we were heading toward betrayal number 3. I had tried to prepare myself for another coworker, another old classmate, Another woman whose name would become a scar. But nothing could have prepared me for what he actually told me. Maya, we need to talk, he said. Those 4 words sent ice through my veins because I had heard them before in this exact context. I dried my hands slowly and tried to brace myself. Just tell me, I said. Who is it this time? The pause that followed felt endless. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. It's Lily. For a moment, my brain simply refused to process the words. What do you mean it's Lily? Your sister, he said, as if clarifying the impossible made it easier to understand. Maya, I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen. I never wanted to hurt you like this. The kitchen floor seemed to tilt beneath my feet. You're having an affair with my sister. It started 6 months ago, he said, words tumbling out like he had been rehearsing this speech for days. When she came to visit for Christmas, she was going through a hard time, and we were just talking, and somehow it just happened. 6 months? The number hit me like a physical blow. You've been sleeping with my sister for 6 months? Maya, please let me explain. 6 months, I repeated, sinking into a kitchen chair. All those family dinners, all those times she hugged me and asked about Emma and acted like she cared about our family. She was sleeping with my husband. James was crying now. Ugly, desperate tears. Tears that once might have moved me. Tears that now made me feel nothing. There's more, he whispered. I laughed. I actually laughed, because what more could there possibly be? What worse thing could still be waiting behind the door he had already opened? More, I said. What more could there possibly be, James? He looked at me like a man about to step off a cliff. She's pregnant. The world stopped spinning. Everything went silent except for the low hum of the refrigerator and the sound of my own heart breaking into pieces. So small, I knew they would never fit back together the same way again. Pregnant, I repeated. We don't know, he said quickly. I mean, we're not sure if it's mine or... My voice turned deadly calm. The same calm I had learned as a teenager when I finally stopped letting Lily scare me. Or what? She was seeing someone else around the same time, he said. But Maya, the timing, it could be mine. I stared at the man I had built my life around. The father of my daughter. The person I had forgiven twice before for breaking my trust. And in that moment, I finally understood something I should have understood years earlier. The apologies, the counseling, the promises, the tears. All of it had been temporary. He was not sorry he betrayed me. He was sorry when consequences came close enough to touch him. Get out, I said quietly. It took me 3 weeks to work up the courage to call my parents. 3 weeks of telling Emma that Daddy was on an extended business trip. 3 weeks of crying myself to sleep after she went to bed. 3 weeks of planning exactly how to handle the conversation that would change everything. I knew I had to be strategic. Lily had spent our entire lives manipulating situations, so she looked like the victim. I could not just call my parents screaming accusations without proof. I knew how that would go. Lily would cry. Mom would comfort her. Dad might hesitate, but old habits were powerful. So I set a trap. I called Mom on a Saturday afternoon, when I knew Dad would be home too, and I asked them to put me on speakerphone for a family discussion. Of course, sweetheart, Mom said. Is everything okay? You sound stressed. Actually, no, I said carefully. Everything isn't okay. James and I are having some serious problems, and I need to talk to you about Lily's involvement. There was a pause. Lily's involvement? Dad asked. What does Lily have to do with your marriage? Well, that's what I'm hoping you can help me understand, I said, keeping my voice neutral. James told me she's been calling him a lot lately, and Emma mentioned seeing her at our house when I wasn't there. I'm just trying to figure out what's going on. That part was not entirely false. Emma had mentioned seeing Aunt Lily's car in our driveway one afternoon when she came home from school early. At the time, I had assumed she was mistaken. Now it felt like one more receipt I had been too trusting to read correctly. Oh, honey, Mom said, in that dismissive tone. I knew too well. You know how Lily is? She probably just wanted to help with whatever problems you two were having. She's always cared so much about your happiness. Right, I said. That's why I thought maybe we should call her now and get her side of the story. Clear the air. Would you mind calling her and asking her to join this conversation? Of course, Dad said. Hold on. I listened as they conferenced Lily into the call. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. Maya, Lily said, sounding surprised, but not panicked. Mom said you wanted to talk about James. Is everything okay? I'm hoping you can help me understand that, I replied. James mentioned that you two have been talking a lot lately. Well, yeah, she said, and I could practically hear her calculating the safest response. He seemed really stressed about work and money, and I just wanted to help. I mean, you're my sister. Your happiness matters to me. That's so sweet of you, I said, loading my voice with fake gratitude. And it was really thoughtful of you to come by the house to check on Emma when I was working late. There was the tiniest pause. Oh, that. Yeah. I just wanted to make sure she was okay. Of course. And James appreciated the support, I'm sure, especially during this difficult time with everything he's been dealing with. What do you mean? Lily asked, and now there was a slight edge to her voice. I could have dragged it out longer. I could have toyed with her. But I had spent my whole life being trapped in Lily's games, and I was done playing by her rules. I mean the affair, I said. The 6-month affair you had with my husband, and the baby you're carrying that might be his. The silence on the call was absolute. Then Lily inhaled sharply. Maya, I don't know what James told you, but do not, I said. Do not lie. Not this time. Mom made a small sound. Dad said nothing. Lily tried anyway. Of course she did. She started by saying James had been lonely. Then she said I had pushed him away. Then she said she had never meant for it to happen. Then, when she realized nobody was rushing to comfort her, her mask slipped. You don't understand, she snapped. He came to me. Maybe if you hadn't acted so cold all the time, he wouldn't have needed someone who actually made him feel wanted. That was the moment everything shifted. Dad hung up on her mid-sentence. Within an hour, he called me back, and his voice sounded shakier than I had ever heard it. Maya, he said, I need you to know how sorry I am. For everything. For not protecting you when you were kids. For not seeing what she really was. For letting this happen to your family. I had spent my entire childhood waiting for my parents to say something like that. And when it finally came, it did not erase the damage. It did not magically heal the little girl who had begged to be believed. But it mattered. It mattered that at least now they could see. The changes came faster than I expected. By the end of that week, my parents had consulted with their estate attorney and completely rewritten their will. Lily's inheritance was revoked. Her trust fund was cut off. Her access to the emergency credit card they had always kept for her was canceled. Every financial safety net she had taken for granted disappeared. We should have done this years ago, Mom admitted one afternoon as we sat in my kitchen while Emma played in the backyard. We enabled her behavior by always bailing her out, always making excuses. We created this monster. I did not argue with her. Part of me wanted to scream that I had been telling them that for years. Part of me wanted to ask why it had taken my destroyed marriage for them to finally believe me, but I was too tired for that. There would be time later for complicated conversations. At that moment, I was focused on survival. I filed for divorce. I demanded a paternity test as part of the proceedings. James's lawyer tried to argue that it was premature because the baby had not been born yet, but my attorney was relentless. We need to establish paternity for child support and custody purposes, she explained to the judge. My client has a right to know whether her husband has fathered a child with her sister. The prenatal paternity test results came back 6 weeks later, and they confirmed what I had already known in my heart. James was the father. Seeing it in black and white on the lab report felt like being stabbed all over again. But it also gave me clarity. There was no room left for denial, no little corner of uncertainty where James could hide. The betrayal had a name, a timeline, a child, a permanent consequence. James tried to reach out several times during that period. He sent long emails about how sorry he was and how much he wanted to work things out. I forwarded every single one to my lawyer without reading past the first few lines. There was nothing he could say that would change what he had done. There was nothing he could say that would change who he had chosen to do it with. The divorce proceedings were messy, but straightforward. James did not fight me on custody. He would have Emma every other weekend and 1 evening per week. He did not fight me on the house. I would keep it and refinance it in my name only. He did not fight me on alimony. He would pay monthly until Emma turned 18. What he did fight me on was his relationship with Lily. It's complicated, Maya, he said during one of our few face-to-face conversations at the lawyer's office. She's carrying my child. I have to think about what's best for the baby. What's best for the baby? I replied coldly. What's best for the baby is having a father who doesn't abandon his responsibilities when things get difficult. But based on your track record, I'm not holding my breath. Lily, meanwhile, began to spiral. With her financial safety net gone and her family relationships destroyed, she was facing the reality of single motherhood without the support system she had always assumed would catch her. She had been working part-time at a boutique, barely making enough to cover rent. Now she was pregnant, cut off, and essentially alone. 3 months after James moved out, I got a text from him that I almost deleted without reading. Lily had the baby. It's a boy. His name is Michael. I thought you should know. I stared at the message for a long time. Michael, my daughter's half-brother, my nephew, the innocent child born out of the ugliest betrayal of my life. I felt sadness for him, but it was a distant sadness, protected behind glass. I had learned the hard way that compassion without boundaries could become another doorway for people to hurt you. The call came 4 months after the divorce was finalized. It was a rainy Thursday evening, and I was helping Emma with her homework. I did not recognize the number, but something made me answer anyway. Maya? The voice was so broken and small that it took me a moment to realize it was Lily. How did you get this number? I got a new phone, she said quickly. Maya, please don't hang up. I know you hate me, and I know I deserve it, but I need to talk to you. I walked into the kitchen, out of Emma's earshot. What do you want, Lily? I'm in trouble, she said. In the background, I could hear crying, a baby crying. Real trouble, she continued. I got evicted last month. I'm staying at this horrible motel, and I don't have money for another week. Michael is sick, and I can't afford to take him to the doctor. I don't know what to do. I waited for a feeling to come. Sympathy, sisterly concern, panic, anything. But I felt nothing. Nothing except a cold, clean detachment. That sounds difficult, I said. Maya, please, she whispered. I know I destroyed everything between us. I know I ruined your marriage and hurt you in the worst possible way. But I'm begging you. Not for me. For Michael. He's innocent in all this. Is James helping you? She gave a bitter little laugh. James moved to Denver for a new job. He sends $300 a month in child support, which barely covers diapers and formula. He's seen Michael twice since he was born. I see. Maya, I'm desperate. I've been calling Mom and Dad for weeks, but they won't even take my calls. I tried going to their house, but they changed the locks. I have no one left. The irony was not lost on me. Lily, who had spent her entire life destroying my relationships and undermining my happiness, was now alone and asking for help from the sister whose life she had systematically tried to ruin. What exactly are you asking me for? Just a loan, she said quickly. Enough to get into an apartment and pay the first month's rent. Maybe $2,000. I'll pay you back as soon as I get on my feet. I'm looking for work, but it's hard with the baby, and most places won't hire someone without a permanent address. $2,000. About half of what James paid me in monthly alimony. Money I could have given her without destroying my own finances. Money that would have solved her immediate crisis. Please, Maya, she said. I'm begging you. I know I don't deserve anything from you, but Michael does. He's your nephew. He's Emma's brother. Half-brother, I corrected automatically. Right, half-brother, but still family. Family. That word had been used to excuse Lily's behavior for 24 years. Family meant I was supposed to forgive. Family meant I was supposed to understand. Family meant I was supposed to be the bigger person, absorb the damage, swallow the pain, and help the person who had hurt me because refusing would make me cruel. Maya? Lily said. Are you still there? I'm here. So, will you help us? Just this once. I swear I'll never ask you for anything again. I thought about 7-year-old me watching my parents adore the baby sister who would one day become my tormentor. I thought about 13-year-old me finding my diary ripped apart and seeing Lily smile before she cried. I thought about all the missing homework, the stolen lunches, the ruined clothes, the unplugged alarm clock, the friends she turned against me. I thought about the milk she secretly added to my food and the way she watched me suffer. I thought about 15-year-old me standing in the bathroom with burned hair while my sister held a lighter. I thought about my wedding day, when Lily hugged me and told me how happy she was for me. I thought about Christmas dinner, when she played with Emma and smiled at me while she was already planning to seduce my husband. I thought about 6 months of betrayal, 6 months of her looking me in the eye, asking about my daughter, pretending to care about my family, while actively destroying it from the inside. Maya, please, she said again. I'm not asking you to forgive me or have a relationship with me. I just need help getting back on my feet so I can take care of my son. No, I said quietly. What? No, I won't help you. The silence that followed was sharp. I won't give you money, I continued. I won't co-sign an apartment lease. I won't provide references for jobs. I won't do anything to make your life easier. But Maya, you made your choices. I was desperate. You don't understand. No, Lily. I understand perfectly. You chose to pursue my husband. You chose to have an affair behind my back. You chose to get pregnant. You chose to destroy my marriage and break up Emma's family. Now you get to live with the consequences of those choices. I can't believe you're being this cruel, she said, her voice suddenly hardening. After everything we've been through. Everything we've been through? I interrupted. You mean everything you put me through? 24 years of psychological torture, ending with you sleeping with my husband and having his baby. That's what we've been through, Lily. Then I hung up and blocked the number. The cycle was finally broken. 5 months later, I was sitting in my boss's office, accepting a promotion to regional marketing director with a 40% salary increase. Emma was thriving in her new school, making friends and excelling in her art classes. Our house felt like a home again, instead of a crime scene. You've really turned things around this year, Patricia said, as she handed me the promotion paperwork. Your campaign strategies have been innovative, and your leadership skills have impressed everyone on the executive team. That evening, I called Dad to share the news. Maya, that's wonderful, he said, his voice warm with genuine pride. You've worked so hard to rebuild your life. Your mother and I are so proud of how you've handled everything. We talked for an hour about Emma's school progress, my new job responsibilities, and their plans to visit for Thanksgiving. It felt good to have something like a normal relationship with my parents for the first time since childhood. It was not perfect. It could never erase the past. But it was real, and it was honest, and that was more than I had ever had from them before. I did not ask about Lily. Dad did not offer any information. Later that week, I ran into Mrs. Gray from my old neighborhood at the grocery store. We had always been friendly when James and I lived on Maple Street. Maya, how are you doing? She asked gently. I heard about the divorce. I'm so sorry. Thank you, Mrs. Gray, I said. We're doing well. Actually, we're doing better than well. Good for you, she said. Then she lowered her voice a little, like she was sharing something she was not sure she should say. I don't know if you've heard, but your sister is living in those garden apartments on Oak Street now. The subsidized housing ones. I see her sometimes at the bus stop with a baby. She looks rough. For a moment, I felt a flicker of something. Not exactly satisfaction, not joy, more like the quiet recognition of cosmic balance. Lily was facing consequences for the first time in her life, and nobody was rushing in to rescue her from them. I hope she's getting the help she needs, I said diplomatically. That night, after Emma was asleep, I sat in my living room, in my house, in the life I had built, lost, rebuilt, and finally reclaimed. I thought about how far I had come. Lily was struggling in subsidized housing with a baby and no support system, facing the results of her choices without the protection she had always relied on. James was alone in Denver, having lost his family for a few months of excitement with someone who turned out to be more trouble than she was worth. My parents were trying to rebuild their relationship with me while mourning the daughter they thought they knew. And me? I was thriving. I had a career I loved. I had a daughter who was happy and secure. I had parents who finally saw me clearly. And most importantly, I had peace. Real peace. For the first time since childhood. Emma appeared in the living room doorway in her pajamas, rubbing one eye. Mom? She asked. Hey, sweetheart. What are you doing up? She looked at me for a moment, thoughtful in that quiet way children sometimes are when they see more than adults expect. Are you happy now? The question caught me off guard. What do you mean? You seem different, she said. Lighter, I guess, like you're not worried all the time anymore. I felt tears rise in my eyes, but they were not the same kind of tears I had cried for so many years. These were softer, cleaner. Yes, Emma, I said. I am happy now, happier than I've been in a long time. I had learned that sometimes the best revenge is not revenge at all. It is simply refusing to let someone else's toxicity poison your life anymore. It is setting boundaries and enforcing them. It is choosing your own happiness over someone else's manipulation. It is knowing that compassion does not require self-destruction, and that family is not a free pass to keep hurting you. Lily had spent 24 years trying to destroy me. In the end, she only succeeded in destroying herself. And the little girl who once wondered why she was not loved enough had grown into a woman who finally knew her own worth. That was the real victory.